it put tears in our eyes when we walked in there. It was that obvious.
Tatiana, I'm going to be quite honest with you right now, okay? One parent to another, right? And I'm going to try and control my emotions, all right? I've been to a child death investigator school, and I've seen photos and images of children that have been malnourished. And I'm telling you right now, this is the worst thing I've ever seen.
Oh no, really?
Yes.
Oh.
Woke up to Mary dead in her bed this morning. The words posted by Seth Welch that morning sent shockwaves across his Facebook page. His 10-month-old daughter, Mary Ann Welch, born to Seth and Tatiana Fusari, was found lifeless on August 2, 2018. But instead of calling for immediate medical help, Seth's first action was to contact his lawyers. As investigators looked into the case, they uncovered details so horrifying that even seasoned detectives, accustomed to cases of malnourished children, couldn't hold back their emotions. The sight of Mary's condition was beyond anything they had ever witnessed. So, what really happened to Mary? How did she end up dead in her crib? Welcome to Dark Case Files, where we explore solved, unsolved, and truly disturbing cases from around the world. Today, we examine the tragic case of Mary Welch. Nestled in the heart of Michigan, Kent County is home to a vibrant community of 657,000 residents. Known for its exceptional quality of life, it's considered one of the best places to live in the state. With a diverse population and a welcoming atmosphere, the county fosters a strong sense of unity, making it an ideal place for families to thrive. Offering the perfect mix of city life and small-town charm, Kent County provides the energy of an urban setting while maintaining the warmth of a close-knit community. Here, neighbors become friends, and a true sense of belonging flourishes. But beneath this peaceful exterior, a tragedy unfolded, one that was no accident. A life was lost. But what led to such a devastating fate? Tatiana Fusari was born on June 1, 1990, in New York. At 20, she moved to Grand Rapids, hoping to reconnect with her mother. But instead of a warm reunion, she was turned away, left to fend for herself in an unfamiliar place. Determined to build a future, she enrolled in early childhood education at Grand Rapids Community College, with dreams of one day opening her own daycare. Alone and struggling to adjust, everything changed when she met Seth Welch. He was charming, flirtatious, and full of energy, exactly what she needed at the time. Born in 1991 in Cedar Springs, Michigan, Seth was a year younger than Tatiana. Their connection was instant, and their relationship moved quickly. After just one date, they decided to move in together, settling into a modest home in Kent County, Michigan. It seemed like the beginning of a new chapter, but what unfolded next would turn their lives into a nightmare. As time passed, the honeymoon phase between Seth and Tatiana faded away. What started as a passionate connection soon turned into a toxic and controlling relationship. Seth's demands grew relentless, and his constant belittling became an everyday reality for Tatiana. The couple, both in their late 20s, lived in a secluded rural area. Their home sat at the end of a long driveway, hidden behind overgrown grass and dense shrubs. Despite the difficulties in their relationship, Tatiana discovered she was pregnant with their first child. She hoped this would be a turning point, that their growing family would bring them closer. Over time, Tatiana and Seth welcomed 3 children into their lives: a 4-year-old, a 2-year-old, and their youngest, Mary Ann Welch, born on October 23, 2017. Wanting to secure a better future, they decided to purchase a farm near Cedar Springs. Tatiana believed things were finally changing for the better, until she learned the painful truth. Seth had been unfaithful. One day, she walked in on him engaged in an inappropriate video call with another woman. The confrontation that followed quickly turned violent. In a fit of rage, Seth shoved Tatiana before assaulting her in a way no one should ever endure. He struck her across the face repeatedly, making sure she knew he was in control. Trapped in a life of isolation, cut off from friends and support, Tatiana felt helpless and afraid. Seth's manipulation ran deep. He treated her as his possession, threatening to kill her if she ever betrayed him. His control wasn't just physical. He used religion as a weapon. When Tatiana became pregnant with their youngest child, Seth performed what he called an exorcism. He struck her between the shoulder blades with an open palm, reciting Bible verses while commanding, "Demon, be gone!" Tatiana suffered both physical and psychological torment. But in this story, she wasn't the victim. Not even close. What had been described so far was only one side of the story. There was another layer to this couple's life, one that was unsettling and difficult to accept. On the surface, they appeared to be loving parents, dedicated to raising their 3 children. But in reality, their home life was nothing like the picture-perfect image they portrayed. Along with the challenges of parenthood, they had also started an agricultural business together. Their venture, originally named Black Acre Farm Products, focused on growing tomatoes, berries, and producing raw honey from their own beehives. Later, they rebranded it as Stewards of Creation Farm. Within this small family farm, one of their children was given chores and worked alongside Seth from sunrise to sunset. While Seth spent his days maintaining the farm, Tatiana took a job at McDonald's to help support the household. As their business experienced ups and downs, the inside of their home remained a mystery to outsiders. However, small glimpses into their lives could be seen through the messages they painted on their fences. Messages that hinted at something deeply troubling. The Welch family's religious beliefs were extreme, to say the least. Seth outright rejected medical care, claiming that faith alone should determine survival. He firmly believed that the righteous shall live by faith. But his views didn't stop there. He embraced the concept of natural selection, openly stating that the weak were not meant to survive. None of his children were vaccinated, something he saw as unnecessary. In his mind, it made no sense to save those who weren't the fittest. He valued strength over everything else, believing that if his children couldn't contribute to his way of life, they were of no use to him. And perhaps that's why, on August 2, 2018, he let one of them die. On the morning of August 2, 2018, Tatiana stepped out to a neighbor's house to pick up some clothes. As she returned, an unsettling feeling crept over her. Around 10 a.m., she asked Seth to wake up, and that's when they discovered their youngest daughter, Mary, wasn't breathing. Panicked, they rushed into her room, and Tatiana attempted CPR, but it was clear that it was too late. Mary had been gone for some time. Despite this heartbreaking realization, Seth didn't call 911 right away. It wasn't until 12:06 p.m., more than 2 hours later, that he finally reported the tragic loss of their 10-month-old daughter.
How long ago did you find this child?
It's about an hour and a half. I was waiting. I called my lawyer first thing to ask, what's the next thing I could do. And they said, wait till they're here to call, the police and get that going. Basically, it got to the point where I was waiting so long, I just kind of went ahead and did it anyway. And they're almost here. So I was waiting on legal counsel.
So you found the child an hour and a half ago?
Yeah.
And called your lawyer first, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. Is there any other children in the home right now?
Yeah. Because I didn't know if I was supposed to call the police or not. I had no idea what to do.
Okay. We will send someone out and we're going to investigate. When was the last time you had contact with a child?
Last night, yesterday afternoon, about 3 p.m. She goes to bed, and that was that.
Okay, so you put her to bed yesterday at 3 p.m.?
Yeah, and then this morning at 10 something, we finally went in to check kind of like, okay, it's been way too long, so, yeah. It sleeps this long all the time, normally, so.
So you're saying it is normal for your children to sleep from around 3 p.m. till 10 a.m.?
Usually about 9:30, yeah. So.
They sleep from 3 p.m. to... I'm just typing in a couple things here.
Sure.
What time do they usually have dinner?
Oh, well, this is my infant. They're not all... They don't all kind of run on the schedule, but she basically eats and, she's up for a half hour after that, and then she goes down for bed.
Okay. And how old are the other children?
4 and 2.
There's 2 other children?
Yep.
And they're at home right now, right?
Yep.
And you said when you found her, she was already believed to be deceased, right?
Yes.
And that's when you consulted with a lawyer?
Yep.
Do you believe she was beyond help already?
Oh, yeah. She was dead at the door now.
Deputies quickly arrived at the scene, responding to a call from the 16590 block of Algoma Avenue Northeast in Solon Township, just northwest of Cedar Springs. But nothing could have prepared them for what they found. Inside the home, they discovered a little girl, her tiny limbs frail, her eyes sunken, lying lifeless in her crib. But disturbingly, that wasn't the worst part. The mattress beneath her wasn't just soaked in urine, it was covered in mold. Even the paramedics struggled to comprehend what they were looking at. The child's body was so severely malnourished that they couldn't immediately tell whether she was a newborn or nearly a year old. Given the unsettling circumstances, authorities treated the case as highly suspicious. While Seth Welch allowed investigators to search the home, law enforcement chose to wait for a warrant to ensure a thorough investigation. Once it was secured, Kent County Sheriff's Deputy Don Tenbrink began a detailed search of the residence, and what she found was deeply disturbing. Mary's crib was filthy, with toxic black mold growing beneath the mattress. The home itself was in a state of decay, swarming with flies. Inside the drawers, Tenbrink uncovered mouse droppings. But the most chilling discovery was in the kitchen. Just a single container of baby food and no formula in sight. Later, crime scene photos revealed something even more unsettling. 3 containers of baby formula were found in the home, but 2 had expired 5 months before Mary's death. Mary had been left alone for at least 19.5 hours before she passed. The only way her parents monitored her was through a hole in her bedroom door. But despite their occasional glances, they did nothing to help her, allowing her condition to deteriorate beyond saving. Later, another shocking revelation came to light. Seth, Mary's father, reacted to the discovery of her lifeless body in a way that left everyone puzzled. Instead of rushing to get help, he made a series of strange decisions. His first move was to call his parents, who were lawyers, to ask for advice on what to do next. Then, he started searching for information about a rapper's kidnapping online, a completely unrelated matter. In yet another odd choice, he sent a text about selling a goat. Despite the urgency of the situation, Seth didn't seem alarmed. It wasn't until about 90 minutes later that he finally contacted the authorities by dialing 911 to report what had happened. This delayed response led detectives to question his actions and priorities in such a critical time. As the investigation unfolded, it was discovered that Children's Protective Services had been involved with the family back in 2014, when THC was found in the system of their eldest child at birth. Seth had also expressed distrust in doctors, accusing them of falsifying documents against him. Dr. David Stard, a forensic pathologist who performed the autopsy, concluded that Mary's death was caused by severe malnutrition and dehydration, the result of neglect by her caregivers. Death from starvation or dehydration is a long, painful process, as the body begins to consume its own muscle and fat reserves. At just 10 months old and weighing only 8 pounds, almost the same as her birth weight, Mary was so weak that she could no longer move her arms or legs. Her muscles had become too frail for her to crawl or even lift her head. Dr. Stard explained that Mary's condition had developed over weeks or even months, showing signs of long-term neglect. Without the strength to cry for food or water, she endured immense suffering until the very end. On the same day, both Seth and Tatiana were brought in for questioning at the King County, Michigan police station. While Tatiana was being interrogated, Seth sat alone in a separate room. Tatiana broke down immediately.
Do you go by Tatiana, or do you have a nickname?
Tatiana.
Tatiana? Okay.
Nicknames don't really seem to work.
You couldn't just give us an easy nickname. No, I'm just kidding. How many children do you have?
Five.
3?
3.
Okay, yep. Alright.
Tatiana's reaction was hard to interpret. It could have been genuine emotion, but it was also possible she was trying to gain sympathy or was simply fearful for her own future. How could she cry for her baby now when she had waited hours to call the police, choosing to consult lawyers first instead? Meanwhile, Seth showed no emotion at all. In fact, he seemed almost casual, completely unfazed by the death of his 10-month-old daughter. His casual behavior increased suspicions. Despite his lack of reaction, the detectives were closing in on the truth. They were using various tactics to get Tatiana to open up. Along with appealing to her sense of motherhood and showing empathy, they were trying to make her believe that Seth was solely responsible for the tragedy and that she had nothing to do with it. Let's see what Tatiana's response would be.
I want you to think about this for a minute. I want you to think for a second and put yourself in our shoes. You're the police officer. You're the police detective. You get called out to that home today. You get called to my home or his home today. Okay? You, the police officer. And then you have to go into that house and you have to look at that precious little angel. Okay? Do you think she was healthy, honestly?
When you look at her size, and you can see every single bone in her body, do you think she was healthy?
We know this isn't easy, Tatiana, but we need to know what happened to her. What was going on?
But when did she start losing all that weight?
The past 2 days.
But she's lost so much weight that you can't lose that much in 2 days. I've never seen a child that skinny. Never. And here's the thing. You're obviously a very concerned mom. But at what point did you know, what point did you think something was wrong? Because I know that you knew something, or you thought something wrong. You are an intelligent, educated woman. And at some point, you felt something was wrong.
It's not until recently. I had so much, maybe it was just delusional hope that she was getting bigger and our cheeks were getting fuller and she was just so happy and playful. And then just these past couple days.
So at what point did she can't even weigh 8 pounds right now. She doesn't weigh 8 pounds. When's the last time that you actually inspected her, that you looked at her? Tell me the truth.
Every time when I change her, and I think I just may have been just so blinded, and I just...
What were you blinded by? Because I know, listen, you are an intelligent, articulate, college-educated, early childhood development. You know when you look at someone that something's wrong. I have a picture of her right here. I'm prepared to show you. That tells you no medical treatment, as dumb as I am. I'm not near as intelligent as you. I can't speak the words you can speak. I am not you. And even I can look at this photo and I can say, whoa, something's wrong. It put tears in our eyes when we walked in there. It was that obvious.
Tatiana, I'm going to be quite honest with you right now, okay? One parent to another, right? And I'm going to try and control my emotions, all right? I've been to a child death investigator school, and I've seen photos and images of children that have been malnourished. And I'm telling you right now, this is the worst thing I've ever seen.
Oh no, really?
Yes.
Oh.
Though Tatiana cried and showed emotion, she was clearly acting unaware. She hesitated before answering, her voice shaky but calculated. Meanwhile, the detective seemed more emotional than Mary's own father, Seth, who sat expressionless, showing no sign of remorse. In the end, Seth revealed nothing, but Tatiana did.
2 days ago, I could have looked at this child and I probably would have thought this child has minutes to live. 2 days ago, if I'd have seen this child in your hands, being a stranger at Myra, I'd have snatched this child out of your hands and faced the consequences. That's what I'm trying to reason with, is that but you didn't receive the help, and you knew that 2 days ago, you just said that she was probably, what did you say, beyond help, or whatever it was 2 days ago. So what?
It's not beyond help.
At what point in this illness did you think there's a good chance she's going to die?
I didn't think at all that she was going to die.
How could you not think that?
Delusional. I don't have a reason why I could think that. I was just being such a hopeful mom. I suppose that I don't have a good reason for you. I'm sorry.
What was your conversations like with Seth?
You said a minute ago that you knew that he didn't want to go to a doctor.
Yeah, because we discussed it before. That we just
discussed her conditions?
Yes.
When was the first time you guys discussed that?
Maybe a month ago.
So a month ago is when. What did you notice a month ago? Because I'm certain you're the one, because you said that Seth didn't want to go. So obviously you're the one that brought up needing to go to the doctor. What did you notice a month ago?
That she was almost 9 months old and just wasn't filling into her clothing like she should, and we talked about it, and you just have faith, and we'll keep feeding her like we do, and keep nursing her, and keep her active, and she'll get there. It's okay, she'll get there.
But let me ask you something. If Seth told you that God told him to sacrifice one of your children, would you do it?
No.
That's what I'm saying, though. That's what I'm trying to wrap my head around. How many conversations did you have with Seth about this?
Not very many. Maybe 2 at most, just because we didn't want to worry about it. We trusted God, and
would he get angry talking about it?
No, I think he'd be very sad.
What would happen? How would he react if you took her to the doctor anyway?
I'm not sure. Something like that has never happened.
I'm just asking you to speculate.
I think he would just be concerned that CPS would be called. But
The couple's lack of planning for their children and their apparent indifference to them became clear. They avoided taking Mary to the doctor, fearing that it would lead to CPS getting involved. This was enough for the detectives to arrest and charge them. Seth and Tatiana's behavior made a mockery of the case. They were left together in the interrogation room for a while, during which they joked about the police and their methods. They talked about Mary and laughed, showing no remorse. Eventually, both Seth and Tatiana were arrested on charges of felony murder and first-degree child abuse.
Tonight, a Cedar Springs couple is in jail awaiting charges in the death of their own baby. Investigators say 10-month-old Mary Welch died yesterday of malnutrition and dehydration.
After their arraignment, Tatiana and Seth were trialed separately. During Seth's trial, Assistant Kent County Prosecutor Kimberly Richardson passionately outlined the horrific conditions Mary endured. She described how Mary's suffering amounted to torture, confined to a crib with a filthy mattress, and deprived of basic care and nourishment. The defense tried to downplay the severity of the situation, pointing out the lack of physical injuries. In response, Richardson said, "What injury did she have? Her whole body was an injury. Her entire body was injured." She argued that Seth had knowingly allowed his daughter to die, deeming her too weak and small to contribute to his farm plans. Seth chose not to testify in his own defense. His lawyer, Charlie Clapp, spoke on his behalf, claiming that Seth did provide nourishment to Mary. Clapp suggested that Seth's religious beliefs influenced his decision not to seek medical care for her, and that he may not have fully understood the seriousness of her condition. The defense tried to paint Seth Welch as a parent guided by his faith, though misguided in understanding his child's needs. However, the prosecution argued that the extreme neglect and the serious conditions surrounding Mary's health could not be justified simply by religious beliefs. The prosecutor presented a strong case to the jury, pointing out the contradictions in Seth's supposed fear of medical treatment. Despite claiming a strong aversion to medicine, it was revealed that Seth had sought medical care for himself while in jail. The fact that he wore prescription glasses further challenged his claimed fear of medical interventions, as he had requested and received treatment when it suited him. This inconsistency painted his ideologies as self-serving rather than genuine. Seth's attorney, Charlie Clapp, attempted to counter this by pointing out that the presence of diapers filled with urine and feces suggested that Mary was being fed by both Seth and Tatiana. Clapp argued that although their parenting may have been flawed and their beliefs misguided, it didn't rise to the level of child abuse or murder. He stressed that incompetence and mistaken beliefs shouldn't be confused with criminal intent. Clapp acknowledged that Seth was overwhelmed by the responsibility of caring for Mary and his two older children, highlighting the difficulty he faced in balancing his duties as a father and a farmer. He urged the jury to consider convicting Seth on lesser charges, given the circumstances and his limited ability to meet his parental responsibilities. The prosecutor, however, challenged Clapp's arguments, pointing to the chaotic state of the house and the neglected condition of the fields. The prosecutor asked what Seth was truly preoccupied with if he claimed to be overwhelmed. During the trial, the jury was shown photographs and evidence that revealed the extent of Mary's malnutrition and the horrific conditions she had endured. One juror was deeply affected by the images shown during the trial, comparing them to scenes of starving children in Ethiopia. However, the juror pointed out that Mary's condition was even worse, as there was almost nothing left of her.
A father who refused to get medical help for his 10-month-old daughter as she starved to death will spend the rest of his life behind bars.
In January 2020, after just under an hour and a half of deliberation, the jury, 7 women and 5 men, unanimously found Seth Welch guilty of child abuse and murder. The verdict came after 3 days of powerful testimony and overwhelming evidence. The trial made it clear that Seth had failed to provide essential nourishment and medical care for Mary, despite her clear physical weakness and inability to cry for help. One juror shared that they were fully convinced of Seth's guilt after carefully reviewing all the evidence. They were determined to hold the true culprit accountable. The stark contrast between Mary's emaciated body, weighing only 8 pounds at the time of her death, and Seth's seemingly healthy and overweight appearance during police interviews did not go unnoticed. The jurors wondered how Seth could care for himself while neglecting his daughter's most basic needs. During the trial, Tatiana also shared her account of the years of abuse she endured at the hands of Seth. She testified that Seth had subjected her to violent acts, including incidents where he held a gun to her head and physically assaulted her. Tatiana's defense attorney, Damian Nunzio, argued that the ongoing abuse had deeply impacted her, leaving her emotionally and psychologically scarred. Despite Tatiana's claims that she had fed and cared for Mary, the autopsy report presented by the prosecution revealed a much darker reality. It showed that Mary had gone without food for several days before her tragic death. Tatiana insisted she had nursed Mary 19 hours before her death, but the prosecution countered, pointing out that the evidence suggested Mary had been dead for at least 72 hours before the 911 call was made. Additionally, it was revealed that Tatiana was pregnant at the time of her arrest and later gave birth to a baby boy while in prison. Given the gravity of the charges against both Tatiana and Seth, there were serious concerns about their ability to be fit parents. The public widely argued that granting them parental rights would not be in the best interest of the child, given the disturbing circumstances surrounding the case. On October 15, 2021, after deliberating for about 3 hours, the jurors in Kent County reached a verdict in Tatiana Fusari's trial. She was found guilty of 1 count each of first-degree murder and first-degree child abuse related to the tragic death of her daughter, Mary Welch. Kent County Assistant Prosecutor Kim Richardson expressed her belief that justice had been served for Mary. Tatiana's defense attorney, Damian Nunzio, expressed disappointment in the verdict and announced their intention to appeal. This case was filled with ironies. While Seth dedicated himself to working on his farm, he failed to care for his own daughter. Tatiana, who had studied early childhood education and dreamed of opening a daycare, was unable to provide her daughter with the love and care she needed at home. Despite having the ability to grow fresh produce on their farm, they neglected to feed Mary the nutrition she desperately needed. It was also reported that their other children were not properly fed and had resorted to eating grass and dirt. What good was the abundance of food if their children were wasting away and starving? Fortunately, Elizabeth and John were placed in the custody of Seth's parents, and their 4th child was placed in foster care. We can only hope they are now being properly cared for and nourished. Sadly, Mary didn't have to die for her siblings to survive. If only her parents had cared for the children they brought into the world. Do you believe Tatiana was another victim in this case? Do you think Seth and Tatiana's other children experienced the same neglect? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. If you want us to cover another case, please mention it, and don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Until next time, stay safe.